When you realize that the person who has slept next to you for 35 years is actually a complete stranger, it's a feeling like the ground disappearing beneath your feet. It all started with a men's watch. Not my watch. I saw it on the dresser in our bedroom when I came home earlier than planned. A massive Swiss chronograph with an engraving on the back cover. To Louis, forever yours. Only the name had been crossed out and rewritten. To Charlotte, forever yours. My name is Robyn, and I'm 57 years old. For the past 20 years, I've been hosting a morning show in Indianapolis, and thousands of people know my face. My wife Charlotte had always been by my side, smiling, supportive, the perfect TV host's wife. Together we raised two wonderful children who had long since moved out and started their own families. I stood there with that watch in my hands, feeling my heart pounding somewhere in my throat. Charlotte was at her weekly yoga class. Or was she really at yoga? Suddenly everything I had believed in for years turned out to be just a facade. The watch was heavy in my palm, substantial and expensive. I turned it over again, studying the engraving. Someone had taken the time to scratch out one name and carefully etch another. The intimacy of that act made my stomach turn. This wasn't just a gift, it was a declaration. A promise. And my wife's name was now carved into it. I sat down on the edge of our bed, the bed where we'd slept together for decades, where we'd made love, where we'd comforted each other through losses and celebrated victories. How many nights had she lain beside me thinking of him? How many mornings had she kissed me goodbye before meeting this Louis? The afternoon sun streamed through the window, illuminating dust particles in the air. Everything looked normal. The framed photos on the wall, our wedding, our children's graduations, family vacations. Charlotte's perfume bottles on the vanity. My books stacked on the nightstand. A perfectly ordinary bedroom in a perfectly ordinary house. Except nothing was ordinary anymore. I checked my watch, my own watch, the one Charlotte had given me on our 20th anniversary. She'd be home in about an hour. I had 60 minutes to decide how to handle this. Confront her immediately? Throw the watch in her face and demand answers? No. That's what the old Robyn would have done. The Robyn who believed in spontaneous honesty and clearing the air. But that Robyn lived in a world where his wife was faithful. This new Robyn, the one holding another man's watch, needed to be smarter. I carefully placed the watch back exactly where I'd found it. I took a photo of it with my phone, making sure the engraving was clearly visible. Then I went downstairs, poured myself a bourbon, something I rarely did in the afternoon, and sat in my study thinking. My phone buzzed. A text from Charlotte. Running a bit late, sweetie. Traffic is terrible. Be home in 90 minutes. Love you. Love you. Those words that once filled me with warmth now felt like acid. I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I sat there, swirling the bourbon in my glass, watching the amber liquid catch the light. 20 years on television had taught me something valuable. How to control my reactions, how to keep my face neutral even when receiving shocking news, how to think 3 steps ahead while appearing completely present. This was going to require every bit of that skill. I didn't stage any scenes. Instead, I contacted a private individual recommended to me by a colleague from the studio. A professional. Discreet. I couldn't take any risks, any leak of information, and the tabloids would tear my reputation apart. The meeting happened in a small coffee shop on the outskirts of town, far from anywhere I might be recognized. I wore a baseball cap and sunglasses, feeling ridiculous and paranoid, but also knowing it was necessary. The investigator was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with tired eyes that had seen too much. He listened to my story without judgment, taking notes on a small tablet. "How long do you want surveillance?" he asked. "As long as it takes to know the truth. Everything. Where she goes, who she meets, how long this has been going on." I paused. "And I need to know about finances. Joint accounts, credit cards, anything unusual." He nodded. "That'll require a separate specialist. A forensic accountant. It'll increase the cost." "I don't care about the cost. I need to know what I'm dealing with before I make any moves." "Smart," he said, and something in his tone told me I wasn't the first person sitting across from him saying these exact words. Most people confront immediately. They let emotion drive them. Then they end up in court with no leverage, no proof, just he said, she said. "I've spent 20 years in front of a camera," I replied. "I know the value of evidence." The next 3 weeks were hell. I continued smiling at the camera every morning, joking with my co-host, talking about weather and local news. And at home, I kissed Charlotte goodnight, feeling like an actor in my own life. But it was more than just acting. It was torture. Every smile she gave me felt like a knife. Every "how was your day, honey?" made me want to scream. Every time she touched me, I wondered if she'd touched him earlier. I started noticing things I'd overlooked before. The way she angled her phone away from me when texting. How she'd started taking her cell phone into the bathroom with her. "Just checking Facebook," she'd say. The new lingerie I'd found in her drawer, tags still on, never worn for me. One evening, about a week into the investigation, we had dinner with another couple from the neighborhood. Old friends. Charlotte was radiant, telling funny stories, touching my arm affectionately, playing the role of devoted wife so perfectly that I almost doubted my own sanity. "You two are such an inspiration," our friend Lisa said, raising her wine glass. 35 years and still so in love. It gives the rest of us hope. Charlotte smiled and squeezed my hand. "Robyn is my rock. I couldn't imagine life without him." I smiled back, clinked my glass against hers, and felt absolutely nothing. It was like watching a stranger perform a play. The investigator sent me updates via encrypted messages. I'd read them in my car before heading into work, or locked in my office at the studio. Photos of Charlotte meeting a man at various locations. Coffee shops. Parks. Once a hotel. That one hit differently. The man, Lewis, presumably, was about my age, maybe slightly younger. Fit. Confident body language. In one photo, they were holding hands across a table. In another, he was kissing her forehead while she smiled up at him. I studied his face, trying to understand what she saw in him. Was he funnier than me? More attentive? Better in bed? Or was it simply that he was new, exciting, secret? Then came the financial report. That's when betrayal turned into something else entirely. Something colder and more calculating. The report came via email in a secure format. Photographs. Dates. Locations. Charlotte had been meeting with a man named Lewis for 8 months already. They had met last summer when Charlotte and I were vacationing in Colorado. I had left 2 days early due to an urgent broadcast, some emergency situation in the city. She stayed behind to enjoy nature. Turns out, nature had a first and last name. But the betrayal itself wasn't the worst part. When I started digging deeper through my lawyer, it turned out that Charlotte had been systematically transferring money from our joint account. Small amounts, $2,000 to $3,000 monthly. Over 8 months, it added up to almost $25,000. The money was going to a joint account she had opened with Lewis. They were planning a future. With my money, I felt not just pain, I felt cold rage. All these years when I worked 12 hours a day, built a career, provided for the family, she was just waiting for the moment to take her share and leave. Using my trust, my money, my name. The forensic accountant had laid it all out in a detailed spreadsheet. Each transaction highlighted. Each transfer to that joint account marked in red. The pattern was clear and deliberate. This wasn't impulsive spending or shopping addiction. This was systematic theft. I sat in my home office at 2 a.m., unable to sleep, scrolling through the documents. Charlotte was asleep upstairs, or pretending to be. The house was silent except for the old clock in the hallway, ticking away the seconds of our dying marriage. $25,000. Not enough to bankrupt us, but enough to show intent. Enough to show planning. Enough to show that this wasn't just an affair of the heart, it was an affair with an exit strategy. I pulled up the photos again on my laptop. Charlotte and Lewis at a restaurant, looking at something on a tablet together. Were they looking at apartments? Houses they planned to buy together? Vacation destinations? In another photo, they were at a furniture store. She was pointing at something, smiling. He had his arm around her waist. The intimacy of the gesture, the casual ownership of it, made my hands clench into fists. My phone buzzed. A message from my producer. "Great show today. Your segment on community values really resonated. Let's do more like that. Community values. Family values." I was Indianapolis's favorite morning personality, the man who made people smile over their coffee, who interviewed local heroes and celebrated neighborhood success stories. My whole brand was built on being relatable, trustworthy, genuine. And my wife was making a fool of me behind my back. But then an idea began to form. A cold, calculated idea that grew clearer with each passing minute. If I was going down, if my marriage was ending, if my personal life was about to become public knowledge, and in a city like Indianapolis, where everyone knew the local TV personalities, it would become public, then I was going to control the narrative. I opened a new document on my laptop and started typing. Then I understood, if I was going to divorce, I had to do it in a way that she would remember for the rest of her life. I began to act methodically. First, I quietly transferred most of my personal savings to a new account opened only in my name, legally, through my financial advisor. Then I hired the best divorce attorney in the state, not a local one, to avoid rumors. The attorney, Margaret Hayes, was a woman in her 60s with steel-gray hair and a reputation for destroying unfaithful spouses in court. Our first meeting was in her downtown office, all dark wood and leather chairs. "Tell me everything," she said, opening a legal pad. I did. I showed her the watch, the photos, the financial records. I laid out the entire 8-month timeline. She listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and studied me. "You have an airtight case," she said. "Adultery, financial misconduct. In Indiana, fault-based divorce is still an option, though most people go for no fault these days. With your documentation, we could push for a very favorable settlement." "I don't want favorable," I said. "I want fair, equal division of assets. But I also want protection. I've already moved my personal savings. Can she come after those?" Margaret shook her head. "Not if they were yours before the marriage or earned separately. But the house, the joint accounts, anything acquired during the marriage, that's community property. She's entitled to half. Even though she stole from me? That complicates things in our favor. We can argue for restitution of the $25,000. And if we can prove she was planning to leave the marriage, that strengthens our position." She paused. "But Robyn, there's something else you need to consider." "What's that?" "Your public profile. You're a media personality. This is going to be news. How do you want to handle that?" I smiled then. Not a happy smile. A predator's smile. "I have an idea about that. But the main thing, I did something else. I started publicly talking about the value of marriage. On my morning show, I launched a series of interviews called What Keeps Families Together. I invited psychologists, clergy, ordinary couples who had lived together for decades. Charlotte even sat in the studio next to me several times, smiling at the camera, holding my hand. The viewers were thrilled with our perfect couple. The show's ratings skyrocketed. I became even more popular. The series was my producer's dream. Each episode pulled in higher numbers than the last. Viewers called in, sent emails, shared their own stories. The segment became a local sensation. Charlotte loved it, of course. She got to dress up, come to the studio, bask in the attention. She played the role of supportive wife with such conviction that even I, knowing the truth, sometimes found myself almost believing her. "You're so good at this," I told her after one taping, and I meant it. She was good at lying. Excellent, even. During those 3 weeks, I also made sure to document everything. I kept a journal, dates, times, Charlotte's excuses for where she was going. I matched them against the investigators' reports. Every lie carefully cataloged. I also started moving assets. Not illegally, everything through my financial advisor, Marcus, who'd been handling my money for 15 years. "Robyn, I have to ask," Marcus said during one of our meetings. "Is everything okay?" These kinds of moves usually signal. "Divorce," I finished for him. "Yes, but not yet. And Marcus, I need you to keep this completely confidential." He nodded slowly. "Attorney-client privilege doesn't apply to me, you know. But I consider client confidentiality sacred. Your secret is safe." "Good. Because when this breaks, it's going to break big. And I need to know that my finances are protected." And then, when I made sure that all finances were protected, that I had ironclad evidence, that the attorney was ready, I arranged the final episode of the program. When trust crumbles, stories of overcoming betrayal in marriage. Charlotte didn't know about the topic in advance. I told her it would be a general conversation about family crises. She came to the studio in a new dress. Louis had given her that dress. I knew this from the photos. She sat next to me under the studio lights, in front of the cameras, in front of thousands of viewers in a live broadcast. And I began to tell a story, without names, about a TV host who discovered betrayal, about a wife who stole money, about a man named... I paused. Louis. Charlotte's face turned white as paper. The camera captured every emotion. Shock, fear, understanding. She tried to stand up, but I gently touched her hand. "Stay, please. We've always done everything together, right?" Then I turned to the camera and said something that changed everything. "But you know what's most interesting about this story? That TV host decided to forgive. Because he understood, real strength isn't in revenge, but in letting go of the past and moving forward. He filed for divorce this morning. The studio froze in silence. And yes, for those who haven't figured it out yet, I'm talking about myself. The divorce papers are waiting to be signed. Charlotte, you can collect your things tonight. The lawyers will arrange everything. I stood up, removed my microphone, and walked out of the studio, leaving her under the camera's sights and the gazes of millions of viewers. The moment was perfect. Brutal, but perfect. I didn't look back as I walked off set. Behind me, I could hear the chaos beginning, producers shouting, Charlotte crying, the audience gasping. But I just kept walking, down the familiar hallway of the studio where I'd worked for 2 decades, out the back door to the parking lot. My hands were shaking as I got into my car. The adrenaline was overwhelming. I'd just blown up my life on live television. No going back now. My phone started buzzing immediately. Texts, calls, notifications flooding in. I turned it off and just drove. I didn't go home. I went to a hotel downtown, a nice one where I'd already booked a suite for the next 2 weeks. Margaret, my attorney, had advised me to leave the house immediately after the broadcast. Let her have the space to process. Let her be the one living in the house where the betrayal happened. You start fresh. The hotel room was quiet. I ordered room service, a steak I didn't eat and bourbon I definitely did drink, and finally turned my phone back on. 347 messages. Texts from colleagues. Holy hell, Robyn. Are you okay? That was the most insane thing I've ever seen on live TV. Emails from the station manager, the producer, the network affiliate director. All variations of, we need to talk immediately. Missed calls from my kids. I called them back first. Emily was crying again. Dad, I just saw it. Someone sent me a clip. Oh my God, Dad. I can't believe Mom did this to you. I'm sorry you had to find out this way, I said. Are you kidding? I'm glad you exposed her. She deserved it. Then, quieter. Are you okay? I will be. David was less emotional, more practical. Where are you staying? Do you need anything? Money? A lawyer? What can I do? I have a lawyer. I have money. I just need you and your sister to know that I love you, and none of this is your fault. Dad, David said, his voice cracking slightly, we're adults. We know this isn't about us. We're here for you, whatever you need. After I hung up, I sat in the dark hotel room, looking out at the Indianapolis skyline. Somewhere out there, Charlotte was probably with Lewis now. Or maybe alone, trying to figure out how her carefully constructed double life had just imploded on live television. I should have felt guilty. I should have felt remorse for humiliating her so publicly. I didn't. Was it cruel? Maybe. But it was fair. The following months were difficult. The divorce. Division of property. We sold the house, split the money equally, though she tried to get more, claiming she deserved compensation for years of emotional support of my career. The attorney quickly reminded her of the $25,000 she had stolen. We ended up with equal shares. The media circus was worse than I'd anticipated. For about 2 weeks, I was the story. Not just local news, national outlets picked it up. TV host exposes wife's affair on live television, ran on entertainment websites and morning shows across the country. I gave exactly one interview to a national morning show where I explained calmly and rationally that I'd chosen to control my own narrative rather than let it control me. That I'd been honest with my viewers, who had supported me through 20 years of broadcasting. That betrayal hurts, but living with deception hurts more. The interviewer, a woman named Sandra who'd been in the business as long as I had, leaned forward at one point and asked, "Do you regret how you handled it? Some people are calling it cruel." I thought about that. I regret that my marriage ended. I regret that I was betrayed. I regret that I had to make a private pain public. But do I regret taking control of my story? No. Charlotte made choices. I made choices. She chose deception. I chose honesty. The clip went viral. Public opinion was divided. Some people thought I was a hero, a man who'd refused to be a victim, who'd stood up for himself. Others thought I was vindictive and cruel, that I'd humiliated my wife unnecessarily. I didn't care about either camp. I cared about moving forward. The station initially panicked, worried about the controversy. But then something unexpected happened. Ratings went through the roof. People tuned in to see how I was doing, to show support, to feel connected to the story. My morning show became must-watch television. Letters poured in. Thousands of them. People sharing their own stories of betrayal, thanking me for giving them courage, telling me they'd been through something similar. One letter from a woman named Patricia stuck with me. My husband cheated on me 20 years ago. I stayed silent, divorced quietly, and spent 2 decades wondering if I should have spoken up. Thank you for speaking up. You gave voice to all of us who felt we had to suffer in silence. Our children, initially shocked, came to understand once I showed them the evidence and told them the whole truth. They supported me. Emily came to visit me at the hotel the second week. We sat in the hotel restaurant, picking at salads neither of us wanted. I called Mom, she said quietly. I tensed. And? She's a mess, Dad. But she's also angry. At you. She says you destroyed her life. I didn't destroy anything. I revealed what was already destroyed. Emily nodded slowly. I told her that. I told her she did this to herself. She didn't want to hear it. She paused. She's with him. With Louis. He's moved into some apartment with her. That stung more than I expected. Not jealousy exactly. Just the confirmation that it had all been real. That she'd really been planning a life with him, using my money to fund it. Are you angry at me? I asked my daughter. For how I did it? Emily looked at me for a long moment. A year ago, I would have said yes. I would have said there were better ways, quieter ways. But Dad, she stole from you. She lied to you for months. She was going to leave you anyway, probably after taking as much as she could. You just took the power back. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. So no, I'm not angry. I'm proud of you. I had to look away so she wouldn't see the tears in my eyes. David flew in from Chicago the following weekend. We played golf, something we hadn't done together in years. On the 7th hole, after a particularly bad slice into the water, he turned to me and said, You know, I always thought you and Mom were the gold standard. The couple that made it work. So did I said. But maybe that's the problem. Maybe we put too much pressure on marriages to be perfect. Maybe if we were more honest about how hard it is, fewer people would feel like they have to lie. Your mom didn't lie because marriage is hard. She lied because she wanted 2 lives. True. He lined up his next shot. But you're better off without her, Dad. I can already see it. You look lighter. He was right. Despite everything, the stress, the publicity, the pain, I did feel lighter. Regarding my reputation, it didn't suffer. On the contrary, people saw me as a real person who wasn't afraid to show pain while maintaining dignity. The show's ratings doubled. I started receiving letters from people who had gone through similar experiences, thanking me for my honesty. The station renewed my contract with a raise. They wanted to expand the show, add an extra hour. I negotiated for more vacation time instead. Charlotte moved in with Louis a month after the divorce. They're still together, as far as I know. I don't concern myself with their life. I heard through mutual friends, ex-mutual friends, really, that she'd tried to get a job at a local boutique, but was recognized and let go. That she'd had to close her social media accounts due to harassment. That Louis's family didn't approve of how their relationship started. I felt no satisfaction in hearing these things. Just emptiness. This woman I'd spent 35 years with had become a stranger whose misfortunes meant nothing to me. Her affair forced the truth into the light. My broadcast forced accountability. And now, we're both free to be whoever we actually are, not who we were pretending to be. I don't forgive her. I don't hate her either. She's just someone I used to know. Someone who taught me a painful but valuable lesson about trust, about authenticity, about the difference between the life you show the world and the life you actually live. And I've built a new life. A real one. A good one. That's the best revenge of all. Thank you for watching the video to the end. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. A playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to is now displayed on the screen. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.